Okay, maybe we'll just get started with introductions. All right. So hello, everyone. We really appreciate you joining our session this afternoon. I hope you've enjoyed the conference. We're really excited to talk to you today about our community of practice of instructional designers and ed tech professionals at UCSF. The name of our, you know what? I'm going to advance here to our introduction page. The name of our group is the Teaching Innovations Working Group, or Work Group, TIWG as we like to call it. And my name is Gina Geiser. I'm the manager of Digital Teaching and Learning Services at UCSF in the group, in the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics. And then I'm also vice chair of TIWG. I'll have my other friends introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Xinxin Huang. I'm a senior educational technologist from School of Nursing. I'm a TIWG core member.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Leyva. I'm the head of instructional design at the UCSF Library, and I am the TIWG chair. Pass it back to Gina.
Great, thanks. So our talk today will be comprised of 3 parts. Each of us is going to talk for about 10 minutes covering these topics. So strengthening partnerships, cultivating community, and advancing educational technology on campus. Then afterwards, we'd like to open it up for questions and discussion. So to start out, we thought we'd talk more broadly about the definition and instructional components of communities of practice and how they align with the educational mission and leadership. So here's a graphic of a Venn diagram that uses overlapping circles to illustrate the similarities and differences between the community and a practice. So the similarities between the groups are represented in the overlapping portions of the circles, while differences are in the non-overlapping portions. So first, looking at the attribute of a community, you might think about people that work together, collaborate, cooperate, and support each other. And oftentimes there's a component of learning or sharing of knowledge in a safe environment, or one that has a social guideline or rules of engagement. So how does that compare to a practice? A practice may have direction and standards. It's something active where you build your skills, progress in your career, and then practice or perform what you've learned. So this image resonated with us because over time, our informal community began to implement and formalize our practice to create a thriving community of practice. And looking at this image, I invite you to also think about the informal communities in your work or personal life, and if a formal practice is part of that experience. And are there opportunities to blend or combine these components to create a community of practice? Sorry about that. So if you're thinking about ways to formalize your group, we found that these definitions were helpful. These are 2 structural characteristics of collaborative networks from an EDUCAUSE article published last year. And EDUCAUSE is a community of technology, academic, industry, and campus leaders advancing IT and higher ed. So looking at this table of different network guidelines, we see that participants in a community of practice are self-selecting. They choose to be a part of the group. And its objective is to learn collectively, network, develop professionally, and share knowledge. It also has a shared leadership model, meaning that anyone in the community can lead or facilitate or work on a problem or a challenge. How is this different from a working group or a team? Usually the individuals are assigned by a manager or a lead to do work on the team. And there's a defined problem, task, or project goal with specific roles and responsibilities. So we found that our group has components of both. And it's good to recognize the difference when trying to build a community versus get a project done. Working groups need members with dedicated time to complete a project, where communities of practice can be more fluid and responsive to the current needs and opportunities. So also in this EDUCAUSE article, the authors talk about the criteria that support democratization. And for our purposes, we're defining that as the action of making something accessible to everyone. So communities of practice can democratize digital transformation and increase the institutional performance by supporting a learning culture that promotes interdependence, empowerment, and readiness for change. So looking at the list on the left, there are 4 supporting ideas to consider. The first is the cultural conditions. So is there a need, and are there conditions present that support the activities of a community of practice? Establishing core values and competencies that are aligned with a strong mission can establish a good foundational culture across the institution. Leadership support must be present for a community or work group to be effective. And leadership must be comfortable with faculty and staff at all levels participating in knowledge sharing, learning, and problem solving. So as IT and EdTech people, we're used to using technology to stay connected online, and having a collaborative space or communication platform is essential for your network to grow and flourish. And although communities of practice need leadership support, it's not a top-down model. So ownership by a participating organizational unit or department is also necessary to maintain the momentum and drive the engagement. It's also helpful to formally dedicate time and resources in some way to the establishment, the implementation, and the sustainability of a community of practice. So on the right side of the slide, there's a list of 3 recommendations for cultivating community at your campus. And the first one's having great facilitators. So these are people who are good at listening, bringing work streams and other collaborators into the group meetings. You might consider creating a playbook of sorts, or having a common understanding of best practices that increase effectiveness of the group and give it purpose within the organization. And then also developing a training program and communication plan to equip the members, which are usually faculty or staff. They need to have the know-how and the leadership skills to implement and sustain the community across the institution. So now that you have a broad sense of the structure and terminology that we're using, we wanted to dive into our story and tell you about how our group evolved. In 2018, many of us were working alone or in very small teams distributed across the schools and departments. And we had met in a learning management system tech meeting, and then started to meet informally to talk about how we use the EdTech tools, commiserate about challenges, and compare processes and share resources. In 2020, we were well positioned to support faculty and students during the pandemic. We shared help documents and conducted cross-department trainings, also creating a centralized resource hub and the start of an educator's toolkit, which we're still working on. In 2021, we became an official campus group under the Education Dean's Council and the Educational Technology Operations Group. So support from certain individuals in leadership who relied on our expertise were the ones that really helped us push that forward. And at that time, core members were appointed from each school and major program. In 2022, the core members of the group worked on several campus-wide initiatives together, which we're going to go into some detail later. And then currently, our community has grown exponentially just this year. So the working group follows the same guiding principles as ETOG, the Educational Operations Group that I mentioned. And our mission is to share knowledge, promote learning, and bridge the connection between the UCSF community and EdTech. So the 4 main areas of our focus are communication, so disseminating information, innovation, highlighting new perspectives, tools, and creative uses of technology, teamwork, so a focus on improvement projects that benefit all academic programs, and advice, informing decision-making that broaden the use of teaching and learning principles. So developing a strong collaborative community of practice serves the faculty and students and the education mission. We do this by problem solving. The group is nimble and closer to day-to-day educational work of faculty, so we're able to quickly identify gaps and implement solutions, and students will see change before they graduate. Fostering equity will help ensure that all students and faculty have comparable experiences and access to ed tech tools, regardless of their school or program. And it increases the visibility of education on our campus, which is sometimes overshadowed by research and clinical care. So developing a strong collaborative community also benefits its members. So inclusion is for staff who have important insights and experience but don't always have a voice or a seat at the table. We do this with equity. So because we have one individual from each school plus members of the community, we're well represented. And we work on engagement at all levels of the education mission. So now I'm going to turn it over to Shinshin, who's going to talk more about how we cultivate community in the Teaching Innovations Working Group.
Thank you, Gina. I will provide an overview of who we are and how we connect. As Gina mentioned, TIWG started in a grassroots manner in 2018 with 12 members. During the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, as everyone sought a supportive community to navigate the challenge of remote teaching, our membership expanded to 28 through word of mouth. TIWG is officially chartered in 2021. Since then, our membership has grown significantly and has doubled the membership and reached a total of 60. Our members come from diverse backgrounds, spanning age from 20 to 60, and represent a wide range of ethnicities. When examining our collective working experience, it becomes evident that expands the spectrum ranging from less than 1 year to over 20 years. Most of our members have 5 or more years experience in the field. Similarly, our years at UCSF varies, with some having spent several months, while others have over 20 years. About half of our group has less than 5 years experience at UCSF. As the early years, our members primarily come from academic programs and the supporting units such as the library and EdTech services. However, as our group has evolved, we now have a regular attendee from nearly all areas of campus. This including individual working in grant-funded program, IT education, HR, and the medical center, which fall outside of the traditional education umbrella. While our initial members consisted mostly of instructional designer, a tech profession, and video producer and course coordinators, our group have since diversified significantly. We now have a wide range of roles, including UX designer, clinical nurse educator, digital equity analyst, and others. In fact, we have over 20 distinct working titles, reflecting a wide range of expertise across our group. Our rapid membership growth and the diversity are a result of our commitment to preserve the community aspect of our meeting. We have a 2 membership track, core members and the community members. Currently, we have 8 core members represent each academic program and supporting units, and 52 community members. Core members actively attend meetings, contribute to group discussion, engage in campus-wide project initiatives, and serve as a campus ambassadors. They provide regular report to leadership. Community members are encouraged to participate in meetings and projects. They bring valuable knowledge and expertise to the group. As all members are expect to monitor and participate in team space, seek professional development opportunities, and disseminate relevant information to stakeholders. Community practice in TIWG are cultivated through our collective engagement in 3 key types of activities: regular meetings, core projects, and virtual working space through teams. We hold regular Zoom meeting twice a month. The meeting involve check-in, introduction, discussion on professional development opportunity, we also encourage members to present their project, ask questions, participate in discussion, and invite guest speakers. Core project leads schedule separate working meetings, but provide update and seek feedback during regular meetings. These will provide further insights into the core project. Our primary communication outside of a weekly Zoom meeting take places in the TIWG team space. These channels provide a safe space for conversations and discussion and collaborations among members, fostering cross-departmental connections. I thought I would share our meeting topics. Here's a list of the meeting topics and highlight some of the sample agenda items to paint a picture of how our meeting works. Icebreaker, we usually begin our meeting with icebreaker to foster connection and create a welcoming atmosphere, allowing members to get to know each other better. We also provide updates on new features and updates on EdTech tools, as well as the progress of our core projects, ensuring that everyone is well informed. During the meeting, we share valuable resources such as upcoming conference, noteworthy articles, and job opportunities in the field, keep members informed about the latest trends and opportunities. We encourage members to give a career talk, sharing their personal backgrounds, education, working experience, and projects they have worked on. This not only inspires others, but also provides a platform for valuable networking and career development. We also invite vendors and experienced users to showcase innovative tools and technology for teaching. Through those demos, members learn about new tools, features, and discuss different use cases to enhance learning. One recent example is feedback flutes. We also invite guest speakers to address topics that are of the interest to our members. In a recent session, we had a guest speaker discuss generative AI, provide insights, and expanding our knowledge in this field. We provide members with numerous opportunities to showcase their project and share their success. It is a great chance for members to learn from each other while also practicing their presentation skills. We have open discussion to articulate our needs and identify any existing gaps, come up with a uniform support across the campus. Oftentimes, the open discussion will lead to a core project. In a recent survey, we asked our members to rate their enjoyment of various meeting topics on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest. The average rating of each topic exceeds 8 out of 10, reflecting the positive reception from our members. The top 5 most high-rated TIWG meeting topic were member showcase, which received 9 out of 10, followed closely by resources, open discussion, guest speakers, and EdTech tool demo. Addition to our dynamic and interactive meeting, the team space serves as a valuable virtual workspace that extended beyond our meeting time, offering several valuable benefits. Firstly, it serves as a repository for important information, allowing a member to access document and meeting minutes and other materials, ensure everyone stay informed, even if they miss the meetings. Secondly, it facilitates problem solving by enabling members to check if others have dealt with similar situation before and seek assistance. Additionally, it promotes the reusability of assets that by sharing documents on tool usage and best practices, allowing general audience through the school to benefit from existing knowledge and avoiding duplication of efforts. Moreover, the team platform support ongoing discussion, feedback, and collaboration for various projects, and members can share best practices, successful story, and tap into wealthy of the knowledge, and fostering a culture of a continuous learning and improvement. As I conclude my part, I would like to share 2 quotes from our members. It's from the survey, but I will let you just read them yourself. The first quote is highlights how TIWG help new member onboarding. The second quote highlights how TIWG fostering a relaxing and enjoyable environment while also promoting productivity and collaboration among members. Now I will turn over to Lisa, who will dive into what we do.
Thank you, Shinshin. So I'm going to walk us through some of our projects and the impact of our work. So knowledge alone is not power. Knowledge must be paired with ability, vision, and action. And this is a quote from James Wilson. I really like this quote because it reminds me of our community of practice. We have learned that there's so much to be gained by connecting and exchanging ideas, but more importantly, how do we leverage that information that we're gathering with this unique group to create the positive changes for our schools, for our faculty, for our students, and then ultimately ourselves? So here are some examples of how we're leveraging and sharing our knowledge to create these positive changes on our campus. This first example is we're participating in IT roadmap interviews and focus groups to share our need for the tools and services that support education. This informs our new education IT team, and they review our feedback and work to implement those changes to provide us with the tools that we need to do our work. We also have an active project where community members are updating outdated articles. These articles are used by the entire education community with information on how to use our LMS. And we're able to work together and secure a stipend for folks that are working on that project. We also have the Video Platform Evaluation Recommendation Task Force, also known as VIPER or VIPER. It's comprised of TIWG members who are also education technology specialists, video professionals, and subject matter experts from multiple disciplines around our campus. And they help by evaluating and making recommendations for video platforms. And then aside from that, we also develop annual symposiums to provide the education community the opportunity to learn from one another and discover new and innovative ways to leverage technology and pedagogy to better support our students. Our most recent event was our Education Engagement mini-series. This took place in May, and the theme for that one was to transforming the teaching and learning experience. We partnered with colleagues who specialize in anti-oppression initiatives, instructional design, education technology, and emerging technologies such as ChatGPT. Faculty also presented during this event, and they shared how they are engaging with their students, which was great because I know that faculty really love to learn from their peers. We also had Dr. Maggie Beers give her keynote. She's the inaugural Associate Chief Information Officer for Education Technology, and she introduced her new team and let everyone know how they'll be working together to empower the education community on our campus with the use of technology. And then we had a mix of attendees, faculty and staff, and we really feel that our attendees left with some practical tips and resources that could be adopted and implemented into their courses. So needless to say, it takes a lot of work to organize these types of events. But coming together as a group really makes it possible to make this happen. We collaborated and had some really elevated discussions about EdTech training strategies that we all learned from. We also integrated some tech into our planning during the event. So here you can see a screenshot of our mural that helped us brainstorm and reach a consensus for delivering the training because there were so many ideas. And then we also surveyed the education community to understand what the training needs on campus. So these events, ideas for what would take place at the event weren't created in a vacuum, and they were relevant for everyone on the community. And then the event also helped us streamline our training efforts and provided equitable resources across our academic programs so that everyone had access to these trainings. And then, we made these connections across campus and provided opportunities for everyone to share their expertise and have a moment in the spotlight. So we had 6 topics, and we all walked away inspired, connected, and feeling equipped for the fall quarter. We had 25 presenters, which were instructional designers, multimedia experts, IT, and then learning resource professionals. We had about 130 attendees, which exceeded our expectations. And then we learned that sharing these ideas leads to more events like this. People get excited about it, and we're hoping to partner again to host more centralized workshops on an annual basis, and then eventually have a stronger focus on pedagogy. So here's a quote that came from one of the survey responses following our event, where people are appreciative of the knowledge that was shared and putting the event together. And, some of the reasons that we were successful with this event, it's important to partner with different disciplines in our schools because we all have different perspectives to share. We learned that communication is important because we learn so much from each other and what's happening throughout the university. We also learned about, delegating tasks to share the work and, provide professional development opportunities to our members who don't usually have these opportunities to share their expertise. And then we also learned that as instructional designers, we're perfectly positioned to inspire and to motivate others to innovate and create the changes necessary to shape the future of our education programs. And then, one of the benefits of having these types of events is professional development for our members. So by participating in these Teach Innovations, events such as the one I just mentioned, it helps them build confidence by being able to speak in front of our main community, which is UCSF. And then by having that experience, they feel comfortable enough to take their talks and maybe share their experience with our broader EdTech community, such as AT Expo and DECI and EDUCAUSE. So our members do go on to present at other conferences as well. And that helps us all stay connected, with that broader audience, and then also learn from that and bring it back. So we're in a continuous learning and improvement. So those were some examples of the impact of our work. But overall, Teach Innovation Work Group, makes it easier for members to connect and collaborate, and it helps us stay on top of what's going on and what is working across the campus, and it helps us streamline our process to improve our own work efficiency. It helps us reach out to community members for training resources and share effective teaching strategies so we're not reinventing the wheel each time. We're also able to work together to pilot new technology and partner on projects together so that it helps all of our schools leverage the limited resources that we have. And essentially, the community, the communication and collaboration for TIWG not only strengthens our work relationships and improves our member knowledge and skills, but it also trickles down to how our faculty teach and improves the learning experiences for our students. And overall, we're really better together. So that's it for our presentation. So I'll stop there, and thank you so much for listening. And now we'll take some questions. No questions so far. Okay, we'll just wait a moment, see if anything comes in. Well, while we're waiting for any other questions to come in, maybe I have a question of my own. And I'm wondering for folks out in the audience, do you have a community or work group that you're connected with for supporting your organization or otherwise? Okay, we have one question in the audience that this sounds fantastic, and I'm unsure if you'll get to this later to folks in the presentation, but how can folks join TIWG? Or how can they get involved with TIWG? That's a great question. You know, if you're at UCSF, you can reach out to me, Lisa Leyva, and I would be happy to have you join us. Now, for anyone external to UCSF, we haven't actually grown our group that broadly, but I would also want to mention that I'm also a part of another community of practice that's UC-wide, which is called IDFS, which is Instructional Design Faculty Support Group, which also met through UC Tech while we were there at the conference, and I'd be happy to connect you with that as well.
Can I add something to that? I was gonna say too, in the beginning, when we weren't a formal group, we spent a lot of time just talking to people to see kind of who did what on campus and try to find people that were doing similar work and inviting them to our informal meetings or having lunch. But I think it's really helped when we formalized and we had core members from each department and school, because then there was an awareness of the group in each department and by leadership. And so as new people would come on board, even, you know, someone who might only be here for a short time under a contract or a project basis, a lot of times somebody in the school would actually tell them about the group, and then they could join that way. And the group is open to anyone who's interested in the topics. We don't restrict it by the work they do. I might also add, if we don't have other questions, that we used to also have a video production component to this meeting. In fact, I think we used to alternate between doing more instructional design and course-related content versus video and media content in our meetings. And we do have a lot of people that kind of, you know, wear both hats. But over time, that group has actually grown and kind of changed and is part of a UC-wide UC video producers group. So it is kind of interesting to think about, you know, potentially merging our group with something a little bit broader. I guess if anyone has any suggestions or other groups on their campus that do similar things, we would love to hear about it.
Any other questions from our audience or comments? No more questions so far, is what we're hearing.
Well, we really appreciate you attending one of the last sessions of the conference. I know yesterday I was a little overloaded by all the wonderful things going on. So we really appreciate your attention and you attending our session. And please reach out to us if you have any more questions. Looks like maybe there is another.
Okay, so we have one question. I'll read it out, Gina, but you can answer if you want. I'm new to ed tech, and how might the work of an instructional designer differ or is similar to a UX designer? And this is from Faithy Leong. Thank you, Faithy.
Yeah, that's a really good question, especially since we're at an IT conference. I mean, I find that oftentimes we're sort of, in the weeds with our own programs and our own sort of work, within a course or in technology even. So for me, even like meeting other IT professionals that I don't normally work with day to day at this conference, for instance, I was seeing that there was a lot of overlap there. Because I'm not a UX designer, I'm not completely, immersed in the differences, but I will say that, instructional designers tend to work on course materials, especially for things like active learning and online learning. It's really important to have us instructional designers sort of look at everything and, add the curriculum and activities to the courses to make sure that they're effective, right? So that they're meeting the learning objectives and the learning goals and are working correctly. So there's a large technology component, but it's very student focused, right? So it's focused on student learning, maybe. So I would say the overlap is probably similar to like a user design, right? When you're thinking about, who's looking at it, who's interacting with the tech, and does it working for them. But to be honest, that's another kind of gap, I think. Even though we might be thinking of things in a similar way, we probably have very different work processes or working in very different systems.
I can add to that too, Gina. When I think of a UX designer, I think about them making the experience for the user when they're coming to, to a technology or a product or service that their experience is enjoyable, like while they're experiencing a website or a service. And that's kind of how I see that. And how I see myself as an instructional designer is, yes, of course, meeting those objectives and all of the requirements that we need to meet up to when we're creating, effective education. But then I'm also thinking about, what is that experience like for the student? How do you make it palatable for them so that, if you're working with technology, that the technology moves away and that the student is able to just focus on the content and that it reaches them in a way that they're able to have their best learning. And if it's non-technical, then I think about, like, how do you create an exercise so that it becomes an experience that's meaningful for the student, so that they engage with it and that it stays with them, so they really get the best salient pieces of that information. And I feel like we do that in so many different ways, right, Gina? Like, through courses, how we design a course, how we put together an activity. So it can be in so many different ways. And that's just my 2 cents. So hope we answered your question, Faithy, but if there's any other questions, you can always, you're welcome to reach out to us. I don't know if there's anything else, but we were about to sign off, and unless there's anything else coming in. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Okay, thank you.